Everybody, welcome to this Community Services meeting on 30th of May. I've got this morning, we've got apologies from the Mayor and from Councillor Laurie, so I'll be looking to those to move for those. Thank you, Councillor Courtney, seconded by Councillor McKirk. Thank you, I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Confirmation order of business. We are live streaming, so don't forget that. So if you are speaking, please put your microphone on when you're speaking, turn it off when you're finished, or we'll hear all your side conversations, which can be interesting but very distracting. Order of business, we've got item 9, we are changing to bring up to item 6. We've got Mr. Thorley here, Brent Thorley from Arts Festival Trust. Welcome to you. And we've also got Crystal Liebersite and Shannon Johnston here, and they're going to talk to us about some work that they are doing, so they'll be coming up very shortly in the public forum. I'm going to ask you if there are any conflicts of interest in any items that you're aware of at the moment. If not, please let me know at the time. So I think we're ready to done that. We are ready to welcome Crystal and Shannon to the desk. Now, have you had the run through of how you deal with the bits and pieces? Welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, so my name's Shannon and Crystal, and we are from the Annesbrook Community Trust. And so this morning we just wanted to come and say hello and talk a little bit about a couple of the programs that we're running in the community. So we're actually pretty excited to be celebrating 10 years, a full decade of running the 24/7 youth work and shine programs in local schools throughout our community. We're currently running these programs in 10 schools. For the 24/7 youth work program, if you're not aware of what it is, 24/7 youth work actually runs right throughout the whole country. So we've got 3 schools here in the local region. We currently run in Nayland College, we run in Broad Green Intermediate and Nelson College for Girls. So we have youth workers employed in those schools. We work alongside the senior staff, the support staff, and also the students. It's kind of like a role modelling / mentorship kind of program, not so much based upon programs, but more about building positive relationships. We have 5 main outcomes that we work towards in terms of creating the framework that we do. So we're all about building positive relationships, cultivating school spirit, supporting students, leadership development, and integrating students with suitable community events and programs. So we're having a lot of fun with that, having a lot of success. In the recent report on mental health and addiction released by the government, the program was actually highlighted as being one of the key strategies that seem to be effective in reducing mental health issues within students and young people throughout the nation. So it was really positive to be mentioned there by the government in that report. Lots of other success stories, but that's 24/7 youth work, and Crystal's just going to talk real briefly also about the great work that's happening with Shine.
Awesome. Yep. So we also run a Shine program. It's called Shine Girl, and it's within 10 schools in the Nelson region, and the program runs every term, once a term, and it's it's an 8-week course for 10 girls, and these girls are handpicked by their deans or the counsellors within the school, and it's an awesome place for these girls to learn their value, their strength, their worth, and their purpose. And so it's for those ones that may have low self-esteem, low self-confidence, those ones that may have not been able to connect with other students within their school that are like themselves. And so we kind of come in, and it's a very interactive program. So we do a lot of teaching, we do a lot of analogies and scenarios and stuff like that, and it's really awesome. We also teach them how to look after themselves, how to treat themselves well, how to treat others well in the school. And it's a great program for those ones that are just a little bit shy, maybe just not too sure about themselves or who they are. So we really teach them that, and we also teach them how their decisions determine their destiny, that they have a choice. We teach them about good peer pressure, bad peer pressure, and come alongside them. And as youth workers, so I'm actually a youth worker in two schools, Broad Green and Nelson College for Girls, we help run the Shine program, and it's really awesome for like building relationships for us with the girls, because we can carry that on once the 8-week program is finished, so we can do some more mentoring with them after, and keep getting to know them and support them within the school. So
Thank you, guys. Have we got any questions? Councillor Corney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to Shannon and Crystal, thank you for your presentation. We learnt a lot, I'm sure. I did anyway. Have you ever received funding from the Nelson City Council?
Yeah, we have. So again, that was one of the reasons we wanted to come in and say hi. In the decade we've been running, probably about 6 of those years, we've received financial contributions from the council, and so greatly appreciative for that. The way that the funding works for these programs is 24/7 Youth Work and Shine, the secular programs that encourage a partnership between the local schools and also the local church. So Annesbrook Community Trust partners with Annesbrook Church. So in terms of the budgeting structure, the church contributes 25% of the total budget. The schools are only required to pay 25% of operational costs, and then the remaining 50% is through community grants, donations, and other fundraising initiatives. So the finance that we've received from the council in the past has been greatly appreciated.
Thank you. I need a follow-up, couple of quick follow-ups. So Shannon, what did you receive last year from the council?
So we haven't received anything for the last couple of years, and hence again why we wanted to just come in and say hi. We thought potentially we might have been a little bit invisible and not popped in regularly enough to maintain that ongoing relationship. So we're applying again for, I think we're able to apply for $5,000 this year. Normally we've applied for the 3-year contracts and been successful, but just had some difficulties regarding being able to communicate effectively with the council and actually find out what needed to happen or why that we've been unsuccessful. We found that quite tricky, but definitely not here to complain, really just here again to highlight the great work and say thank you for the support we have received.
And are you seeking, through you, Madam Chair, are you seeking another 3-year contract from them or from the...
We're unable to apply for that this year. I think the funding's tied up for the next few years and we can only apply for
an
the
annual one. And how much are you applying for? 5,000?
We'll apply for the maximum 5,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rutledge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, can you briefly explain your theory of change and what evidence base there is for saying it's successful?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I guess when you're working with people, it starts to get a bit tricky when you're trying to measure some of the intangibles in terms of long-term change in people's lives. I think, if I can speak personally, so I started out as a youth worker. I was one of the original 24/7 youth workers 10 years ago in Nayland College. I did that personally for 5 years, and so for me, I was able to journey with some year 9 boys right through their whole school experience, and seeing where some of these boys were when they started school to where they are now. I'm still bumping into these men in the community, and many of these men are now, they have great jobs, they're married, they have children, and knowing that I was able to be there in terms of a role model, positive influence, and help them out throughout that process. Where they are today definitely wasn't necessarily where they were tracking during the young teens, I guess. In terms of measurables, we work closely with the deans, with the counsellors, and with the senior staff. So we're another thread in the weave that is the support structure within the schools. So we're definitely not the only solution, but one of the benefits that we're able to add is we do focus more on the bridging role and the highly relational aspect of it. So where a counsellor or a dean or a staff member might be seen as more of an authoritarian kind of figure or a parent figure, youth workers being younger and more relational are able to connect in a way that others aren't necessarily able to, and then we're able to point them in the right direction. I think as well with that, a lot of finance and resource goes into supporting either the academic elite or those at the very bottom of the rung that are sort of blowing up and causing issues. But there's a whole lot in the middle that actually, it's not that they don't need support, it's just that they miss out on the opportunity. And so we also work a lot within that space there to provide right through the whole school system.
That was a very hard question to answer, so.
I don't know if I even answered it,
wondering
but I
what you
did talk. Sorry.
It's a really, Kate.
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you so much for the great work you do in our community, and I'm sure you make a huge difference to many young people's lives, especially over the years. I just had a couple of questions regarding the Community Investment Fund. Did you apply to that and miss out?
So for last year?
Or the year before? I'm not sure when we did our last 3-year rounds.
So we did apply, but we just didn't get accepted last year and the year before. Actually, the year before we got told not to apply for the 3-year because there wasn't enough money. So they said definitely apply for the next year, which was 2018, but they still didn't accept us. So we were kind of a little bit like, ooh, why did they tell us to do that?
But you were told not to apply for 3-year rounds of funding, even though that's what we're trying to head towards, is to give community security and that ongoing sort of work with us. You were told not to apply for 3 years.
Yeah, because apparently there wasn't enough money to fund everything. So, yeah. That's what happened. And then we got told this year just to apply for the $5,000 because there wasn't a 3-year application this year. So that's what we're just in the process of doing.
Thank you for letting us know. We were told that everyone who needed 3 years had already got to that point. So I'm a little worried that that's not been communicated to us, that some of our key community groups have missed out. So you've received funding in the past from council?
Yeah, for 6 years.
And how much was that?
$20,000 for both 3 years.
20,000 per year?
No, 20,000 over 3 years.
Over 3 years.
And that was through the community, what wasn't called the Community Investment Fund then, it was called the Community something.
Yeah.
But you've had successful applications before and you have performance indicators to show that your work...
Sorry, Councillor, but you've taken quite a lot of time, and I just want to say that we do have a process, and if you need some help getting your reporting done, then I suggest that we connect you up with the staff so that that can happen, because I think that's where the glitch happened. So there's never enough money, unfortunately. I just wanted to say about that you're actually concentrating on that middle group, and it's always been a concern to me that is absolutely right. The lower and the upper always are taken care of, and there are loads of people in the middle that are just missed. And often they're the ones that shine, actually, that's what you called your group. But they do develop when they're given a little bit of nurturing, and obviously that is, and I am a little bit familiar with your program. So I just wanted to thank you for the work you are doing, and you have seen a lot of young people come through, and they know they're safe in that environment. But the fact that you're going into the schools, I think that's fantastic. So thank you for your work. If there's anything our staff can do, I'm sure you've been in touch with the community investment, community partnerships. Councillor Matheson's dying to say something, so I'll let him have the final word.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Who gave you the advice that you wouldn't be successful? Was it staff or was it the committee itself? Do you know?
That we weren't going to be successful.
Yes.
They never said that we weren't going to be successful. They just said that...
And they said don't apply.
Yeah, they said don't apply for the 3-year because there wasn't enough money for us, because I think they knew our past, the 20 grand for 3 years and then another 20 grand for the 3 years.
Right, now the reason I'm asking you this is because this should be a form of, a sense of fairness in this. You should have been given the right, I believe, to apply.
Yeah.
Along with everybody else, and I just found that a bit strange.
Yeah.
And it's not very consistent with what I think we're trying to achieve here, so it might be something we could talk about later on.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Cool.
No worries.
Thank you for your time.
Councillor Noonan, Through the chair, I actually felt like you cut me off in the middle of questions. I would like to follow this up, and I'd like a staff report in terms of how that has occurred. I've got some alarm bells ringing in terms of our community investment fund not meeting the needs of our community.
We will look into that, and the staff are talking, so obviously there is something to be said. Mr. Thorley. So Nelson Arts Community Trust, we're looking today at an item for you, so you're coming to present and answer questions. So Ms. Raggett, thank you.
Good morning, Chair and Councillors. So in front of you today is the Statement of Intent, the draft for 2019-20, and we've got Brent here to help answer any questions you may have. So
we're on page 43.
Thanks.
Right, any questions from Councillor Rutledge? Did you have a question?
So we're just taking it as written, there's no, okay.
Well, Mr. Thorley's, yes, Mr. Thorley's here to answer
Certainly,
questions.
I did have a couple of questions, thank
He's
you.
got to go back to work.
There's some notes in here saying that we should look for more fulsome metrics going forward, but that's not possible this year. So the question is not for Ms. Thornley, it's for the officers, is we've been running this thing for years and years and years. Do we not have pretty good metrics about what's been delivered in the past that we could use to base this on? And also, we clearly set up this structure because we believe it will deliver a better result for the community than the previous structure. So is it not as simple as take the metrics that we already know, go, we're expecting it to improve by X, and there's your new metric?
Through the Chair, thank you for your question, Councillor Rutledge. So having had a look at the draft Statement of Intent, there are quite a number of metrics already listed in there. So for example, it's to be a 10-day long festival. The audience numbers are to be remained at current levels, which is 8,000 ticketed events sales and 5,000 community attendees. There's also metrics around 3,000 participants in the mask parade and 20,000 attendees. Also, ticket sales achieving 60%. They're also going to be running an annual survey, which we can compare to previous surveys done through the council. And yeah, further performance measures will be obviously developed. The other thing that's not noted in the Statement of Intent is the wording that's in the contract with the Trust. And that outlines that the festival is to be broadly in line with previous programs. So this is just the first draft Statement of Intent, and the idea is that it's a similar process to previous years with similar numbers, and then there'll be metrics that will get developed. A lot of that work's been done by the Trust through the strategic plan work they've been doing, so feeling very confident that that will be covered off in this Statement of Intent for the following year.
Okay, so what more specific metrics are you thinking would be appropriate for future years?
So the Trust have indicated in the Statement of Intent on page 53, they've outlined strategic performance measures. The bit that's missing here are the box, which I asked Brent to take up, but there's an extra little box that sits there for targets, so that'll specifically measure against those measures. So for example, the festival excellence, a program of exceptional quality art experiences, and then there might be a target around what that would look like. So this hasn't been done to this depth previously when it was in the council. Previously it's been measured through long-term plan or annual plan outcomes and the residents survey. So this is all new and quite exciting work. So it's a neat opportunity for council to have an input into that for next year. But at this point that's not been done yet.
So why is it not possible to do that now?
So as far as I'm aware, through the Chair, the strategy has just been launched last week, and that work hasn't been done yet.
Okay, and then through you, Madam Chair, why are the targets the same as last year, when we set up the new structure with much greater ambition?
Do you want me to answer that?
Go for it.
Thanks for the question. Good morning, everybody. Actually, I think it's worth Shanine's point about reading the SOI in tandem with the contract is quite important, because the contract does express the intentions that you are quite rightly pointing out, Councillor Richards, is that we're looking to go somewhere else or further or improve the festival. So while they set these as minimum targets, they do talk about the expectation that there will be a minimum and growth in audience numbers, a growth in stakeholder support, a growth in the number of people attending the mass parade and the visibility of it. So these are all things I think that were the aspirations of moving it to a trust. At the moment, what we don't know is what that will look like in the first year. So we were reluctant to put numbers which we would have pulled out of a hat, basically, in terms of what is the expected growth in year one for the festival. But certainly as the SOI goes up to the out years, we will start populating that based on what we are seeing, and as the trust itself starts to identify its priorities for rolling out the strategy, which we haven't done yet.
Okay, I'm just indicating to you now, Madam Chair, I'm underwhelmed by this. I think we set this up with great ambition that this would really drive this festival forward, and putting in targets of status quo is probably not where I'd hoped this would land. So I'm not quite sure where we might go with that, but yeah, I'd like to see a bit of ambition in this.
Is there anything, councillor, that this is going to go to council? Is there anything that you would want to see between here and council that's possible?
So it sounds like in the contract there are statements around what we expected to see as improvements. So I guess I would like to see those reflected in the SOI with some metrics about some improvements, and even if they are modest for year one, that would probably seem reasonable, but they're actually in here, and otherwise when we come back to look at this in a year or two's time, it'd be hard to say which direction things are going if we're not measuring it.
Mr. Hall? Just wonder if we can do anything. Pause the meeting and have a conversation.
Thank you. Through the chair, what we were just discussing there was whether there might be some additional information which we could circulate around to councillors before the full council meeting, and perhaps we could get together with Brent and Shanine afterwards. But what I'm turning over in my mind is whether the schedule to the contract and the details in there might be something we could circulate around, if that would provide some additional information for Councillor Rutledge and others to be able to feel confident that the KPIs and the objectives being set for the trust are appropriate.
Councillor?
So, Mr. Ball, why would the contract not align with the statement of intent? Should there be alignment in those two documents?
Through the chair, I'd expect that, yes, and I believe that is the case. The SOI isn't a straight word for word repeat of the contract for obvious reasons, but if there is some information in the schedule there that might help explain and elaborate, then I think we'd probably be able to share that around.
Okay.
I think we'll go with that at the moment. I'm just going to say that if there's we're going to obviously go back to part of the meeting. If the officers think that there needs to be a slight change to the wording, then I'd like them to consider that before we progress this piece of business. Councillor Fortin.
Oh yes, thank you for coming in today, and thank you so much to the Trust for the hard work they've done this far. I've got, so I participated in some of the workshops in developing your strategic plan, and I thought they were incredibly dynamic and really valued participating, and I think the other stakeholders in the community really valued the contribution they made. I have quite a different view perhaps to Councillor Rutledge's. I see that there's heat within the statement of intent and within your strategic plan. You've got very clear intentions to grow and strengthen and expand. And I just wanted you to touch on some of that. In particular, you talk about the mass parade and trying to reach out to a more inclusive community. So how you, if you could just touch on some of those ways that you intend to do that.
So I need to be slightly careful here not to steal Charlie's thunder in terms of program launch.
Yeah.
So this year we definitely have identified 3 areas that we want to lift our game, noting that I guess the tension between wanting to be intentionally aspirational but also mindful that we've got public funds and to manage that growth in a very deliberate way. And just to point back to Councillor Rutledge briefly, we have done some work since we signed off the SOI draft with staff, so I'm sure we could actually add some of those 3 critical areas that we're talking about for this year to that. So that might be a good way to address your concerns as well. So yes, the visibility around the Mass Parade and Carnival, so an opening night event that engages the whole city is what we've asked the staff to work on. Part of that is moving the Mass Parade beyond just being around schools, so involving and inviting other members of our community and groups, so cultural groups. And one of the things that we're exploring is whether this is also an opportunity to celebrate the first responders around the fires, so whether they will have pride of place and a visible presence in the festival as well. So looking at the festival being a very public expression of what our community values as well. So those are some of the things that we are looking at, and we're also looking at having quite a strong visible presence in the central city, which will run for the full festival but will be launched on the opening night as well, which will bring people in.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGurk.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Brett, for coming in, and really enjoyed the launch the other night of the strategic plan. It was great. Just probably 2 aspects I want to focus on in terms of, probably getting into the weeds in terms of the SOI that I think probably want to be included. Just a view about impact of waste minimisation, and just there's a lot of people in town and the impact that will have, and if we want to role model the sorts of behaviours, perhaps a view.
Yeah, we spoke about this before, and I absolutely agree. It is a conversation that the board has had, and we're looking at models of other festivals that are doing kind of zero waste very well, WOMAD being probably the exemplar for festivals. So it isn't something that we've explicitly done, but I will take that back to the board and the staff on the back of this conversation and you raising it.
Yeah, and probably something I should have raised earlier on, but I didn't. But just in particular on Carnival, there's nothing mentioning about public safety in terms of the event. I know the Carnival in previous years has been an issue with young people and stuff. I'm just wondering, in terms of the SOI, about some kind of deliverable that we could have about liaison with ensuring a safe event, or because normally that's something that's the council's done, but we'll pass it over to you. So do you have a view?
Absolutely, and I think you'll find that that's in the contract. There are absolutely requirements around the health and safety delivery of the festival itself more broadly, and as a board member I'm acutely aware of the new accountabilities and responsibilities on board members around public safety, so we will be ensuring that the festival meets all of those expectations.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Corney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to Brent and Shanine. Thank you both for your report. And Brent, thank you for the excellent job you're doing. The Chair and I, well, the whole council has total admiration for you and your trustees. The calibre is very impressive, and we've got nothing but positive thoughts about you going forward. We're sure you'll make it a bright and happy future for the Trust. Have you broken your ties with the Nelson City Council yet, or when are you planning to run free from the council?
Depends how you interpret that question. Certainly
Brent, I'm reading here on page 52, 3 objectives, performance measures, targets. Complete the transfer from NCC governance. When is that proposed?
So that has absolutely happened. So the 1st of January, basically, that occurred. So the council passed staff and responsibility for the operation of the festival across to the Trust.
Fine. Thank you. And follow up from that, this is a transition period, and normally establishing, in my world, a new business, you have establishment costs and sometimes often not foreseen. Have you experienced anything along those lines?
We've been very grateful in that we have had some support from the previous budget to support the transition from council. We've also had support from Creative New Zealand in the development of the strategy. And I have to acknowledge here that a number of the board members have reached into their own pockets to support the transition. So, for instance, we had a launch last week. None of the money that we received from any of the funders towards the festival went towards that launch. It was all funded by the board. So, yeah, we're starting to make some progress around that. There are costs, but we are careful that we're meeting those from sources that wouldn't eat into the delivery of the festival budget.
That's commendable. And I know the food was made by the board, so it was much appreciated. I'm going to ask Mr. Ball to explain what we're going to do to incorporate the concerns of Councillor Rutledge and others, because, as he said, this is an SOI, so there is a process. So we think we've got something that might work. So I'll let Mr. Ball explain what we might do.
Thank you, through the chair. So I was just going to recap, as with our other SOI processes, the objective here, the SOI belongs to the Trust, and the objective here is to provide feedback to the Trust on their SOI, and if we have that, we can record that in our recommendation. And there is one specific piece of feedback which the staff are recommending already, which is requesting the Trust to include more specific metrics in the subsequent statement of intent. If you wish to see those more specific metrics now, or if you have suggestions on what you would like to see, then I think we record that in the minutes, or if it's brief enough, we can record it in the recommendation. As a recommendation through to council, this is our feedback to the Trust on their SOI, then they are asked to go away, reflect on that, adjust and bring it back. And that is what we have done with our CCOs and our CCTOs when we give them feedback.
So that won't stop today, this?
We would, through the chair, no, it wouldn't stop today. We would be adopting a recommendation which provides the committee's feedback, which will be a recommendation to council. And the council, if they endorse that, will say, yes, we agree that the following 2, 3, 4, whatever pieces of feedback be provided, then the Trust is asked to revise their SOI accordingly.
Okay, so I'm just going to say that for a little bit, yes, we've got you, Councillor Rutledge, you're right next to me. What I'm intending to do is not proceed with this item at the moment. We'll come back to it as we'll go back to our minutes and work through, and that will give the staff a little bit of time to just come up with the appropriate wording so that when we get to the item that it'll be ready and hopefully ready to go. Councillor Rutledge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you, and look, I hope no one's taking me wrong here. I think the document is great. It covers everything other than some of those specific things I would have expected we could bring forward, but that's one part of it. The other part of it is a bit more ambition in some of these targets, and to reflect the fact that we set up this structure because we believe it will deliver better results for the community, and even if those are modest for year one, I would like to see something more than status quo for the metrics we have included.
So I think from the launch, I'm not sure whether you were there, but we were definitely told that when the Arts Festival starts, we will know about it. It's not going to be not going to be a secret. So I think
And
as long
Madam
as
Chair,
the whole
I have
thing...
every confidence that that will be so, and I think the areas they're focused on are spot on. But I do want to see that backed up with, there will be some results delivered, and I'm sure they will.
Yes, thank you. So we'll leave that, we'll leave the staff to go away and formulate something that we're all comfortable with. I think everybody's given some feedback.
Well, some of us might be quite happy with what's here as well. So
And
actually
that will
you're
be
seeking
covered.
an amendment. Nobody's actually moved the recommendation, so you're seeking an
No,
amendment.
and we're
without-
not, I'm not, as I said, I'm not going to do this piece of work right now. I'm going to come back to it because the staff need a little bit of time just to come up with item 3, which is a recommendation to council, which incorporates any comments from the committee, because this is the best place to have it, really. This is what the committee's for. So it'll just be to incorporate or to consider any further feedback from the committee and to have a bit more metrics. They're probably in there, they're probably in the contract, but we haven't got them in front of us. So I just want to have a look at, and you can comment on that when we come back, when we put the third clause in.
Well, I'm concerned that the staff are spending time doing something, creating a third clause when that might not actually be, it might be Councillor Rutledge's view, but it's not my view. I'm quite happy that they could amend slightly.
And we have, okay.
So I don't feel a strong need to have metrics included in the statement of intent. We can see that there's incredible progress being made by the Festival Trust already in their strategic plan. We can see that there's lots of indicators that they want to strengthen and grow their festival, and I'm very confident in their ability and reassured that they are heading in the right direction. So for me, we could say that, you know, that's, to me, it's quite straightforward and we should just get it done right now and not spend longer in these committee meetings than we need to. And actually all that needs to be amended is that approves the Nelson Festivals Trust draft statement of intent with minor amendments based on feedback. You know, that it's not that hard for them to just go away. And I think that Councillor Courtney picked up on a minor correction which needs to be addressed, but it's not that difficult in my mind that we need to.
Okay, so thank you, Councillor. I'm going to ask the staff to do the third clause while we're working through, and if it's the wish of the committee not to include that, then we'll deal with that when we bring it back. Okay? Are there any other comments from any other members? No? Right, thank you very much. We'll let you go in time, yes? And we will revisit this item shortly. I'm sure the staff will let you know how we go, Mr. Thorley. So I'm now going to, it's been a long welcome, but I'm going to welcome the youth councillors because that was sort of the preamble. So we've got Theo Wheatley and Paul is going to look after Theo, and we've got Anna Sawyer and Brian is looking after Anna. So welcome to the committee meeting, and if you've anything you want to say, just talk to the councillor next to you and they will help you do whatever it is you wish to do. So we're moving on back to item, it's numbered 5 in the agenda, and that's the confirmation of the minutes for the 11th of April, and I'll be looking for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Councillor Fulton, would you like to second the minutes? Thank you. No corrections to that, I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. And the extraordinary meeting, which was the one we had to discuss the library in Stoke, and that was held on the 29th of April. And I need a mover that is a true and correct record. Thank you, Councillor Matheson. Thank you, Councillor Fulton. I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. There is no chairperson's report. It's been too busy in council for me to even think about it. So, and you've all been in the room with us, so we're all in it together. So, no chairperson's report. It has been busy, and there have been lots of things going on in the library. And I'm sure that if you look at the media, you'll see what's been going on in both libraries. We've now got the Youth Council update. Who's going first? Anna's going first. Thank you.
Kia ora. So, good morning. First of all, thank you for inviting both Theo and I to attend your meeting. Youth Council has been up to quite a bit recently. So first, as you probably already know, we submitted on the Nelson City Council's annual plan. This involved a lot of behind the scenes work, including getting as many youth as possible to fill out surveys that we created to get a broad range of views and opinions from youth in Nelson. Then, of course, writing the submissions as well as coming into council to verbally present the ones that we deemed the most important to youth. Another thing that Youth Council has been busy with is the Youth Leadership Forum that we co-ran. This event happened on the 17th of May, and at this event we had people with experience with leadership come and share their stories, tips and tricks, and ways that you can be a leader. These speakers included Chloe Swarbrick, Grant Elliott, Shay Wright and Steve Smith. On top of running this event, we also led a workshop where we had current and past youth councillors talk about, and the youth MP for Nelson, who is Esther Walters, talk about their experience in governance. And so we've had lots of positive feedback from this event, so it's great to have positive feedback as there was a lot of hours and hard work put into making sure that it ran smoothly. Another thing that we've been up to is getting a picnic table to put at Sunday Hole down in the Maitai River. I believe the last community services meeting, another youth councillor briefly told you about this, and the progress of this table is that we have now chosen a beautifully done table from Woodrocks down into Hunanui, and we are looking at the best place to put it. So now I'll hand over to Theo to talk about the remaining things.
Cool. So on the 12th of April, youth councillors attended and ran a session at the Ideas Festival, which had a focus on making decisions at a governance level whilst learning the importance and power of your voice. It was aimed at sort of intermediate aged youth, so that's year 7 and 8, which is age 11 to 13, I think. The youth attending seemed to enjoy it, and after a short period of awkwardness with some tech issues, it actually ran quite smoothly and we got positive feedback from the youth attending. We've also been involved in coastal hazards. We sent out a survey and a video to youth. We sent it out online, which covered coastal hazards. There was a slight communication between Youth Council and the staff member helping us on it, where either we didn't understand what they said or they didn't understand what we said. But we worked through that. There's a spot prize for the survey where that is a stand-up paddleboarding experience for 2 and a recycled tote bag for anyone who completes the survey has the chance to win it. The survey ends next Tuesday after Queen's birthday and it's drawn on the Wednesday following. Youth Council's also been involved in the RockQuest. We attended the RockQuest Heats on the 4th of May, and they talked about the award Youth Council sponsors, which is the Crowd Engagement Award. And so the Crowd Engagement Award gets awarded to the band who engages the crowd throughout the songs and has the best reaction from the crowd, like after they finish. Youth councillors then attended the RockQuest finals on the 24th of May, where they talked to musicians backstage, reminding them of the award and people in the crowd about Youth Council. The award was presented to Blind Eye, which is a Waimea College band, and consisted of $200 worth of rock shop vouchers.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Courtney.
Thank you. I'd like to, through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask Anna for some more details about the picnic table, because where it's being located, there is definitely a need for something more practical there. And where did the idea come from and how are you progressing it?
Yes, so through the chair, thank you for the question. We are just looking around the Sunday Hole down at the Maitai River about where to place this table, because we thought that it would be very necessary to have something there. And so we're just looking currently about where to place that. So at the moment, the only progress is that we have picked out the table, and I'm not sure whether we have paid for it yet, but we've picked it out and the table will be arriving soon-ish, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for that. Through you, Madam Chair. So the design will be such that it's high enough, elevated enough to get a chair underneath and that type of thing. We do have some tables there at the moment, been there 20 years, great big concrete structures that are very low, set low and not very practical, so it'll be improvement on those, I hope.
Yes, through the chair, there is a big concrete block there currently. So the table that we are getting has 2 benches to the side of it, so it will be a place that you can sit and have a picnic or whatever on that table.
Councillor Fulton.
Oh, look, I have a question about the picnic table as well. I think this is a very exciting piece of work, and I'm really, I love Sunday Hole. It's one of my favourite places to go to in Nelson. I walk there a lot and I swim there a lot. There's not a lot of shade up there as well. Have you considered how you can shade the picnic table? I'm looking to Andrew Petheram. Have you considered any native planting around that area, or how you might, I know it's lovely to have an open green space as well, but I think some people would like to have some more shade up there. Has Youth Council considered that?
I'm not sure if we have, but I can put that into our notes. And we're still looking at or anything like that yet, so we're just clarifying that at the moment.
Thank you. The park staff is working. Mr. Petheram, you busting to tell us something? Come on down.
I understand that the Youth Council are working with Haiti.
Ah, Haiti, right.
Could you just keep that dialogue going with Haiti? She can arrange that for you.
She'll be very helpful. That's really good. Thank you very much for your report. Any other questions? No? Okay. So we're ready to move on to the quarterly report at item, what's numbered 8. I don't know what number we're up to, but I'll just tell you what pages we're at. It might be a bit easier today because we have moved around a little bit. So page 16. And we've got a variety of people coming to report. We've got a lot of staff here at the moment, so we'll try and keep them brief so they can get back to their work. So who's leading this? Ms. Raggett, thank you. I'm sure you'll get joined in from time to time with appropriate people. So you can take the report as read. Are there any changes? I know this was written as at the 31st of March, so a lot has happened since, I know that. So are there any major things that you want to point out to us of change?
Through the chair, no, nothing to mention, but I'm sure things can come up with questions as needed.
Okay, so any questions from the committee? Do you want to go through page by page pretty much? Is that helpful? Councillor Rutledge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, if I just have some clarification on the budget on page 18. It looks like we are down 1.2 million. And I'm just wondering if you could explain a little bit more about what's driving that, and if you expect that to level out by year end.
Who would like to answer that question?
Thank you, Councillor Rutledge. We're working, it's a terrible question. We're working through this at the moment with through the annual plan process. And some of the projects that we have in this category will not be spent. And but generally our operating expenditure is pretty much, will be pretty much on target by the end of the financial year.
Can I follow up on that and ask what areas are not going to be spent?
Sorry, I'll have to come back to you with that later on.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, it does say parks and active recreation, so I'm not sure whether all these items belong to this committee. Well,
No,
this committee is in control of all of those items.
Councillors and Madam Chair, it's in here because I think there's only one item that relates to this committee. The rest of it we discussed at Parks and Recreation last week.
So the 1.2 almost that we haven't,
So that
it probably relates to
the question that Councillor Rutledge is
So Sport and Rec Committee, not this one.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, that's
yes.
fine.
And I'm sorry,
Okay.
and that's why I wasn't prepared for it. So I'm
Sure.
sorry,
Right.
Councillor.
Okay, thank you. Sorry we can't help you, Councillor. Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we go to page 21 at the top? There's a bit there that says with a potential full year underspend of up to 15,000 possible, depending on the final costs of relocating the Welcome Cloak. Where is the Welcome Cloak?
Through the chair, so the latest update for the Welcome Cloak is that Capital Projects are carrying out the project management of that work. There's going to be some building maintenance done on the wall before it goes up, so that that's ready to go. Once it's up, it's up. We have a project team with a design team, a structural engineer and an artist, and they're currently working on the design process for the install. So that's currently underway and almost complete. And that's going to be done this financial year, as well as the artwork being repaired. And also, just to confirm, it'll be installed in 2019-20. I've got Officer Preston Thomas here to provide some further information and show an example of what needs doing.
Visual aids.
So if I can through the chair, if I can pass this.
Yes,
I know what it is, thank you.
Yes.
So I want to follow a question on this. This welcoming cloak's been a total pain since day one.
It has. It's been a
And I don't
challenge.
agree with where you're relocating it. It's going to be a vandal's Christmas present. But besides all that, what is this thing costing us now?
So through the
I
chair.
wouldn't like your last comment to be going out to the public, because that's an open invitation for
I can tell you I'm not the only one publicly that has brought it to the attention.
I think we need to be carefully choosing our, I don't want to advertise it.
Okay, well, forget and pretend it doesn't exist on that wall, okay?
Yes, let's do that.
Now, what are the additional costs associated with this piece of art?
So through the chair, as you'll see from the piece you've got in front of you, there's a need for some re-anodising, and you'll also notice that where the grommets and so on go in, there's some signs of wear, so stainless steel, shackles are all being put in there. In response to the comment or the concern around it being vulnerable to vandalism, it's going high above the ground, so it can't easily be reached by vandals. There's some detailed engineering assessments going on to make sure that it is fit for purpose, it's not going to be knocked around, and will remain safely in place for years to come.
Through the chair, just to add to that. Oh, sorry. Matt.
Thank you for that description. You haven't answered my question, and that is, how much is all this costing?
So we're waiting on the final assessment and costing from the architect. He's providing the detailed breakdown of exactly how much it's going to cost to put that piece of artwork on the wall.
I'm sorry to be a
I'm just
little
wondering,
persistent on
Penny
this.
Mayor, if that figure would be available for the June quarterly report. Will it be done by then?
I'm expecting it any week.
Any week?
Yes.
Well, the reason I'm asking this, because it's unbudgeted money.
I think there is a budget for this.
It's coming out of the artworks
Come out of the maintenance
budget.
fund, the arts maintenance fund.
It's all been spent on that one.
So there's going to be a whole lot of vacancies around the city for artwork.
It's going to come to the August meeting, so you can look forward to that. But we will know earlier than that, so if you're really interested, go and find Mr. Preston Thomas. Right, I'm just wondering whether it might be easier to work through page by page, basically. Is that going to help? And then you can just raise your hands when we get to the page, so. Well, okay, so we'll go to pages 20 and 21, and that will cover you, Councillor McGurk now.
Question on page 17.
Okay, well. Councillor McGurk. You can go, yes, please.
How fixed are we on this view that the welcome cloak goes on to the Te Awa, the visitor centre? Because originally the artwork was designed to be across water, and I think was Queen's Garden was the preferred site.
So through the chair, as you'll be aware, that there were some significant problems with it being suspended above Saltwater Creek that resulted in the wind damage and the situation we're currently in. Given the feedback of the desire to have a high visibility location, the planning has been done using that site in mind at Malazaka.
Through the chair, just to add to that, to explain what the design team are looking at. So it's not going to be one solid, well, it wasn't solid piece, but it used to be tethered together. It's going to be now in smaller sections so that it can still move but not get blown around and things like that.
Mr. Ball's going to add to this.
Yeah, through the chair and perhaps to my colleagues, could you just refresh the council, the committee's, refresh the committee around how this recommendation came about? I understand it came through from the art selection panel, is that right? So You can just cover that off.
Yes, it has been considered by the art selection panel, and the artist was also involved in that discussion.
And so if I may continue through the chair, obviously it would be quite feasible for the committee to hold a different view and to direct otherwise if it's so saw fit. But the process that where we've arrived at so far is not simply the decision of internally of staff. It involves specialists and those involved with the artwork over quite an extended period of time. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for your reply, Mr. Ball, I appreciate that. I suppose what I'm struggling with is the site at the visitor centre is only marginally less exposed than it was at Saltwater Creek in terms of exposure to wind and the elements.
Yeah. So through the chair, because it's got a solid wall behind it, the opinion from the engineers is that it will stand the test of time. And also, hence the reason for replacing those rubber grommets with stainless steel and joining them up just vertically rather than horizontally as well, so the whole thing doesn't move at once. So we've had some quite detailed engineering looks at that to mitigate that concern.
Look, it's going to be one of those ones that was never going to be easy, was it? I mean, and we just got to accept that it's never going to be easy. This one is the one that has caused us some angst. But look, we're in it. Let's just make the most of it.
Some other artworks around have caused angst. I'm thinking the one down at the bottom of Trafalgar Street still gets dished up.
Look, I mean, art is art, and art is very personal, and what Councillor Rutledge loves, I might absolutely pour. And vice versa. It's like wine, I think, art. So, we're going to have a problem, we're just going to have to bite the bullet and work together and work with the staff, and I'm quite happy to leave it with them, frankly, because if we try and meddle around with it, I think it's only going to get worse. So, can we just sort of relax with it and go with the flow at the moment? Councillor, who have I got next? I've got Councillor Fulton next, but she wants to go back a couple of pages, so we'll pick up those couple of pages before.
I think we're nearly done on the cloak. I guess I just hope that the art selection panel did consider the Queen's Gardens if that was where it was initially supposed to go. So that has been considered, because I would have thought it was quite sheltered from wind there because it's surrounded by trees.
Madam Chair, Councillor, we considered Queen's Gardens, but we were more concerned about vandalism in there than perhaps anywhere else. It's easy to scale a pole and rip it down in Queen's Gardens. Okay. This site here, I've looked at it, as the asset manager, I've looked at it with a fairly cynical eye, and I think if we get it up high enough, it should be okay.
I think that we need to trust our community with regards to vandalism. I remember when we did the Buxton toilets, people saying that the toilets would be vandalised the next day, and as far as I know, the beautiful ceramic mirrors are still there and looking amazing. So we actually need to, generally people respect art and they respect people's hard work. So I think that we need to, I think that the lesson that we can learn from this though is that when selecting pieces of art which are not intended to be short term, they need to be durable in terms of the weather. So I'm not sure if this is perhaps just, I think of the totem pole up Washington Valley, which just looks fantastic and has probably got a zero maintenance. I accept that some art needs more maintenance than others, but I guess being mindful when we select pieces that they are durable and as low maintenance as possible as part of that selection process.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'm coming back to you, but on that point, I totally agree. I think we need to be, we have got an arts maintenance program, thankfully, but I think you're right. And where the artwork sits is important, and if it's inside, you can have a totally different piece from outside that needs to be durable, and we do need to maintain them. So I agree with you. I think that's an item that needs to come up in the asset management plans about the artwork and where it is, and we will discuss that when we go through those plans, won't we? Okay, good, thanks.
So thank you. So my question on page 17 is around the Bay Dreams event, and I see that there's a report coming to the committee on the 11th of July. I just want to raise some of the issues that I'm looking for to be addressed within that report. One is around zero waste, and because I felt like their last event was very poor in terms of its waste management, and we know that there's events of that scale such as WOMAD which have zero waste aspirations, and I really believe that if we're going to have a reoccurring event in Nelson, it needs to be zero waste, particularly in line with our recent climate change emergency declaration. My other concern is around shade, and I understand that there was reasons why the alcohol that was chosen in terms of low alcohol units, but I believe that we must be able to find a way around that which allows us to promote our local, and I can't believe I'm quite saying this, but our local craft beer and wines of the region as part of our regional identity. I think if we're going to support an event like this, we need to ensure that we're supporting local cuisine, and there was also incredibly long queues for food, so I'd like to see more local cuisine there as well. So hopefully those will all come back in the report. That's my feedback on page 17.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Thank you.
And the other thing is the disposable tents. Then, you know, the zero waste, apparently people had disposable tents and left them here, so that's not okay either. Mr. Ball's going to correct something.
Through the chair, just one small correction. At this stage, based on advice from the governance advisors, we'll probably take that report to full council. So I'm just making a small correction. We did say in here that we were going to bring it to this committee, but because it crosses over a number of committees, we've been advised that we need to take it to full council. But
okay, so we've just heard that right now, because I hadn't been told.
All right, great. So I'm just hoping that a lot of those issues are covered off within the report.
So what date will that come through then? Oh, it's coming to the 20th, so it's coming earlier. So I hope you've got time to incorporate all those things. Right, currently it will come to the 20th of June, full council meeting. Mr. Petheram, did you want to add something?
Madam Chair, while we're on page 17, can I just comment on the Stoke Youth Facility? We've arranged to have a small skate ramp installed in the car park at Stoke Hall. It's only small, and we'd previously said that we would try to make that relocatable, but we've looked at a small concrete option which would create less noise. It's reasonably priced, so with committee's approval, we intend to get that installed in the next couple of weeks.
That is very good news, and I'm sure Scott's listening.
We must state that it's fairly much boy-focused. We've tried to look at something which would suit young women, but it was much more complicated at this stage. But at least,
what do you mean? Sorry, what do you mean by that?
Well, I know I'm going to get myself into difficulties.
You're going to get into
if you go down to the skate park at Neil Park, most of them are young men, and I feel that we need to be creating things that are mostly for young women. But it's a bit more difficult.
You can always paint pink daisies or something on it. That might put the boys off.
I think our young women expect more than that, Councillor.
Well, it might encourage them. Right, thank you. That's very good news that we're going to get a skate ramp at Stoke. So you heard it here first. Thank you. I've got a list. Councillor Courtney's next.
Thank you,
And
Madam Chair.
we're between pages 17 and 21
Well, I'm going
at
back
the moment.
to just briefly back, briefly back to the welcome cloak.
Yes, that's in that realm.
Is it going to be illuminated, as the previous one was, over the Saltwater Creek?
I'd have to review the final plans to answer that question with some accuracy, but I believe so. So I'll have to complete
And that'll be in
that
the
one way or
evening,
the other.
that'll be in the evenings, won't it?
I can
Yeah.
put that in the next report.
Yes, fine.
Councillors, I'm aware that Tom Ransom he's investigating lighting at the moment. The difficulty that he has is that it's got to be vandal proof. So he's trying to come up with some way of lighting it that can't be smashed. So our lighting does get attacked.
Not the, excuse me, just following up again, not the lighting over the Saltwater Creek though, because it's been shining ever since the cloak came down over a year and a half ago, and the great news is it was turned off on Tuesday of this week, so that's good. Pleased to report that. Thank you. Madam Chair, through you, I'm looking at the Trafalgar, the Elmer Turner Library redevelopment, page 32.
We'll come along to that. I'm going to work my way through.
Okay,
Yeah, so anybody on 19 to 21 at the moment?
I've got back to
17 again, right, be brief.
I have a subsequent question because Andrew just touched on this wonderful small skate ramp, which is great. Have you looked into a hip hop dance space for young women and young men?
Councillor, Madam Chair, Councillor, following your last comment to me about this, I have, but I really don't know where we can put it in the short term.
Right. Could it go in front of the community centre?
Councillor, I think we perhaps need to have a conversation about this.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Councillor Theo.
So about the Stoke Youth Facility, I think one of the ideas for it was that it wasn't like, as much as youth wanted it, they didn't just want it to be like a skate park. Are there still plans for there to be more for like other youth that don't skate?
Absolutely, Youth Councillor, and that was, that came out at our workshop. It's far more than just a skate park, and the Youth Council has stressed us to that in the past. What we see is putting in a temporary facility will encourage some form of communication with youth. So it's a starting point, something to begin with at this stage.
Thank you. It is part, that was one of the like low-hanging fruit, like can't we get something now? So we thought we'd see if we could get something now, so that's the something now. But it's not going to stop there. There will be other things. Right, we're moving on to pages 22 to 24. I've got a question, but the officer isn't here unless anybody else would like to explain the Green Meadows budget. Anybody like to have a go at that? On page 22. Okay, well, we'll wait for Mr. Levertis to join us. In the meantime, anybody else got questions on 22 to 24? Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is a sculpture, on sculptures at the moment, in the Ogle Tasman car park that was dismantled because it was damaged, I think. Do you remember that? They've never brought it back.
Councillors, Madam Chair, there is an issue with that piece. It's completely fallen apart. And we've gone back to the sculptor to see if it can be rebuilt, but we suspect it's past its recovery. We've looked at it, but it's just crumbled.
Not having a very good morning with these things, aren't we?
No, we're not. Can you stop asking questions that result in horrible answers? Councillor Rutledge.
So, Madam Chair, are we doing these bits that relate to the specific reports further down? Because I see the Stoke Youth Park's mentioned in 23 as well as...
Yeah, I guess that's the...
I'm looking at page 36.
Yeah, that's the issue, I guess. We've got both, haven't we? It's sort of, we've got, yeah.
How would you like to... Do you intend to then go down through all the subsequent pages? Or
Well, hopefully by the time we get through the written, then we might have covered the other, but we'll cover off any that aren't covered off after I've done the written. But have we got anybody else between... I'm going to have to wait for Mr. Levertis to arrive. No, here he's not. I can hear him now.
Yes, Alec is on.
Here he is. Thank you, Mr. Levertis. So we're looking at page 22 of the report, and the question is that we've got our barcodes, and the Green Meadows Centre, of course, is exceeding the budget. So we just, if you could explain, I understand that you volunteered to explain why. Chief Executive.
So at the moment we have incurred extra costs, and I just have to be careful what I say here in terms of legal advice. In fact, I'd much rather that we talked about it and the answer to that in public excluded, Madam Chair, if that would be all right.
So just what I'm looking at is in public, so if there's something you want to say in public, because it's in the report.
So we are overspent, and we are looking at, and I don't think it's any secret, we're looking at avenues for how we recover that money, but I really don't want to say anything more than that at the moment.
That's fine, thank you, that covers it off. I don't think there is anything more you can say, but it's obvious. Councillor Courtney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to Mr Levertis. I'm looking at 8.5, the Queen's Gardens toilets. How are they progressing? That would be the first question. I have one or two here.
Through the chair, I haven't been past the Queen's toilets myself.
It's actually Mr Petheram.
Madam Chair, for Alec, I went past them yesterday. We're making good progress. The walls are up. The roof is due to be in place on Tuesday. It's still on target to be completed by the end of June.
And on budget?
We have no reason to believe that.
So
it's out of
quality, budget and timing, those that are all good at the moment.
It's all good.
Fantastic.
That one goes over budget.
Just following on from that to Mr Levertis, people in the contracting area have been asking me the question. Hughes Watts was the original contractor chosen to build these toilets at Queen's Gardens. We ended that contract with them way back. Did we have to pay any money to Hughes Watts to extricate ourselves from that contract?
Through the chair, no, we didn't.
And another follow-up question that I had, and this is from the community, if you'll understand that. Why did we choose Hughes Watts? Hughes Watts?
Watson Hughes.
Watson Hughes, I mean. Watson Hughes so far out from the starting date. I mean, we awarded the contract to Watson Hughes for the Green Meadows Centre, and at the same time we awarded them the Queen's Gardens toilets. Why did we do that?
Through the chair, both of those projects were put out onto the open market through the public tendering process, and Watson Hughes was successful in both of those. In terms of the start date, that was part of the issue, and that's when the council and Watson Hughes mutually agreed to not proceed with them on the Queen's Gardens toilets.
So they agreed, through you, Madam Chair, they agreed not to proceed. They forfeited the contract.
Through the chair, yes.
Any other questions on pages 22, 23, 24? Councillor Fulton?
Yes, I have a question around the Refinery Community Arts Centre. I can see that there's a feasibility study underway. Just how's that going? Because that's quite an exciting project as well.
We're currently in a request for quote phase of the process. We've defined some scope and anticipate bringing a report back to you on the outcome of that in due course.
And does the, I can't remember if it's the Arts Council which occupies that space, are they all on board with design features and, or is it not that far ahead? Okay.
This is for a feasibility study, so the request for proposal is to do the feasibility study, right? Fairly early days.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Gosh, that's still miles away then.
Anything else on 24, 25 or 26, and then we'll quickly whip through the coloured pages if we've missed anything. Anything there? Councillor Fulton?
Yes, with regards to the Green Meadows Cafe, I can see there's quite a summary explanation of how we ended up with the fit out that we have. Into the future, is there an opportunity to, I know there's been some concerns raised that it doesn't quite fit with the rest of the centre. Is there an opportunity to relook at that in terms of the lease?
Through the chair, could you answer that please, Mr Ball?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, there will be eventually. I would need to refresh my memory when that lease comes up for renewal, but when that opportunity does arise, we'd be able to have a look at that.
Councillor Rutledge?
So the key question that was asked of officers when this matter was last discussed was, does the fit out, is the fit out in keeping with the standard across the rest of the building? And that hasn't been.
The question, sorry, councillor, the question
answered,
asked was, did the fit out reflect what was in the agreement? Because we can't change something.
No. So that there was two questions. There was, does it meet the agreement? And I think the advice is that it does. The second question was, is it in keeping with the standard of fit out across the rest of the building?
And that was done quite some time earlier. Many years ago.
Sorry, I don't
The
follow,
proposals,
Chair.
I don't know whether anybody was here at the time. Are you able to answer that, Mr. Baldwin? Possibly not. It was during the previous group manager's time is when we signed out. The request for proposal to run a cafe went out. They came in and they were assessed, and the operator that's there now was the one that was chosen based on what she put
I
through.
follow all that, Madam Chair. I guess we're sort of in the review phase of this project now, and so the question is, have we landed where we would have hoped to have landed, and is it in keeping with the fit out and standard of the rest of the building? It's not that we would necessarily do anything about it, but it's one that you'd, until contract renewal time perhaps.
Right, Mr. Ball will answer.
Through the chair, I think we're comfortable that the terms of the lease are being met.
Right, well, yes, councillor.
I think what councillor Rutledge is asking, and this is what we tried to explore last time, it's a little bit like the new airport building. In terms of the cafe within the new airport building, we would expect it to be in keeping with the architectural design elements of that structure. And the concerns were raised that the lease that we ended up having did not have the design features in keeping with the architecture of the community centre. And that, I think, was, and I guess it's about learning for next time round, that when you create a space and you want certain groups of people to occupy that space, what kind of design decor levels do you set? So a little bit like the Suter Art Gallery as well, and the Suter Cafe there. Has that design element been met? And it might be that it's an urban design panel question, I don't know. But I think what we're trying to say is it's really important that when we lease internal spaces within a building which we've tried to set a certain bar for, that also meets that bar.
So in the future, it could go out with a request for proposal needs to be in keeping with the design of the building or something along those lines. I think you've got a good point there. So we're going to move on pages 27 through. So Green Meadows, I think we've probably I will just quickly flick through, and if you've got anything left on any of these, let me know. So page 27. Green Meadows Community Housing Renewals, it's probably pretty straightforward. Marsden New Burial Area, anybody been up to have a look? I haven't yet, but I probably will. Had a look? Is it quite major? Lots of digging, okay. Oh God. Okay, well, moving on to Queen's Gardens toilets, which we've talked about. Artswork program, which we've pretty much covered. Almatuna Library Development, any questions on that? Councillor Courtney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To you, at the beginning of the annual plan process, this project, the Almatuna Library redevelopment, was well down the priority list of priorities. And now it's been elevated reasonably rapidly, I would say, to a point where we read in the paper the other day, that the Nelson Mail, that we're going out to consult with the community. How did that happen?
So it's probably where it should have been. There are two streams of work. So the one piece of work is the part that Mr. Ball and myself are involved in, and that's to seek the views of the community about what the build inside, the activity might look like, what people's expectations, desires, whatever. I mean, we'll gather all those in, and they'll probably have to be refined quite a lot. So that's one stream of work. The other stream of work is exactly where it is in the design and that, and which I've got no oversight on. That's another stream of work that's happening. At the same time, the Chief Executive might want to comment on where that's at, or Mr. Ball. Right. So that it's two streams of work, so we need to just be clear on that, and the part that we were going out with recently was getting the views of the public and the users and those that don't use the library, and find out why they don't and what they think should happen in that space.
I'm just a little bit puzzled as to why it's had this speedy elevation.
Well, it's lining
From
up.
way down the list of priorities, not way down, but down the list of priorities to where it is now.
It's lining up
From the
with the
beginning of the
LTP.
annual plan process to where we are now, and we haven't quite finished the annual plan process,
guess
but
we
it's been
should-
elevated with great speed.
Well, it should have been. You've seen the figures. So the 1920, we should be spending 1.2 million. So that means that, yeah, we're going to get into it. So we're on the 1890. So on page 32, which is where we've actually spent 2,500 up till March, which isn't a lot. But by the end of 1920, we should have spent 1.2. So there's a lot of work to happen.
Yes, that's what's concerned with. We're rushing this. Simply
Mr. Ball is
Yep,
going
okay.
to respond.
I thought I would just perhaps provide a bit of context if that's helpful. As the Chair mentioned, yes, there are sort of two main parts to it, but there is only one project, and the project board is, I'm the sponsor of that and the chair of that. This work was scheduled for this year, and we had the budget for it. I was concerned that we not allow the year to go by without getting some of this underway, even though we have not. It is true. Council has not yet precisely defined exactly the location for the Omatuna Library redevelopment. You know, will it be exactly an existing footprint or something nearby? We are working on the presumption that it is the River Precinct based on earlier council decisions and workshopping. So with that in mind, what we wanted to do was to get a public engagement underway. It's not a consultation with a sort of in that formal sense, but it is an engagement. It involves our internal stakeholders. It's going to involve the public. It's going to involve 3 workshops with brief workshops with councillors, and that's around eliciting feedback of what do we want to see in a library space, in a modern library space, what sort of community facilities or hubs or any of those other ideas. With that, and armed with that, we hope to carry forward the conversation about the precise location, but that has some complexity around it, and obviously we're in a public environment and we can't say too much about that, but there is further information that will need to be brought to the council table and decisions that will need to be made that relates to some other strategic property decisions which will be and currently are before the council. But in the meantime, I think that we need to carry on with this, talking to our public about what they want and helping to refine our own internal thinking as well. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Yes, you see, the community are restless with this announcement. They are restless, and I'm not overstating it. They say to me, Mel, 14.6 million. Go down Trafalgar Street, and I've done this. And I've asked 12 people. And libraries wasn't on the list. I asked them 5 of their most. You see, we've got to listen to the community and what they are wanting. And here we are, we've elevated this from down the priority list, I would claim, at the beginning of the AMP process, to right up top, and we're now consulting with the community. But look, it's not what they're wanting. I know you can look surprised. Madam Chair, I know it's what you're wanting. They can think of so many other ways we can spend 14.6 million.
Maybe, Mr. Councillor Courtney, but in the previous council, which you weren't here then, this was signed out. And the public have been asking me, where is it? Why aren't we doing? I get emails all the time about it.
Well, if you'd let me
I've got
finish.
lots of people coming and giving suggestions.
Right.
So
Well, you and I are not. You're not.
Signed out.
Thank you. You and I. Thank you. You and I are not talking to the same people, evidently.
No, probably not.
No. Will you? I challenge you to go down Trafalgar Street and ask the people what the priorities are, because I've done it. And libraries wasn't even mentioned.
Well, it was on the previous council.
So, you see, the point is, Madam Chair, we don't even know, as Officer Ball said, we don't know where the location's going to be, we don't know whether it's going to be 2-storey, 1-storey, 2 levels or 1 level. We have none of these answers. We don't know whether we're going to sell the site we've got now and have someone else build it for us. There's so many unanswered questions But I think we've gone out far too early with this. Far too early. And as I say, it's unsettled. Madam Chair,
Well,
it's unsettled the community.
Councillor, you've got your opinion, and I'm
No, it's
here.
not. I'm the voice here.
Well, you're a
I'm the
voice.
messenger. And I'm
Right.
telling you, when I've
can
spoken
you-
to, you can ridicule me and say 12 people
Councillor.
might not be many,
Councillor,
but it's significant.
Can you calm down, please? If you finished. I'm going to take an adjournment now. Thank you for a break. I think we've had long enough. We'll reconvene in 15 minutes. Have we got a quorum at the table? Right, so we were on page 31, 32, I think we finished with that item. And we're now Stoke Library structural improvements, and because there's some things happening with that, we've got Mr. Petheram at the table. Obviously, you're aware that the Stoke Library facilities moved out of the building and they are temporarily in Greenmeadows. Had a very nice visit there yesterday and people are settling in quite excited. It's a very, very small place, but it's providing everything and people are very, very happy. So it's good to know that we've set up something, and thank you to the staff for doing that. They've obviously put a lot of effort into relocating everything. Thankfully we had a lift, so that helped get storage and chairs and things up. So focusing back on the Stoke Library itself and the issues with the roof, I'll get Mr. Petheram to outline where we've got to.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just give you a brief update. NELMAC are working, they started there on Monday, and by last evening they had managed to construct the temporary props to go under the beam, and they're ready to start removing the cladding today. We have to put props under there because the cladding is actually a structural element of the library. It's plywood, and if we don't prop underneath those beams, there's a risk that it could collapse. So that's been constructed. It was signed off last night by the structural engineer, and so the cladding will be removed today. The engineer will be doing an inspection later on this afternoon, and I hope that he'll contact me tonight, just with a verbal update on what he believes the damage is. It will take another couple of days to get a formal report. So we should know something at least by tomorrow.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Councillor Rutledge and then Councillor Girk.
Thank you. That all sounds good, and yeah, well done to staff, but also yourself, Madam Chair, for getting that temporary library up and running. I think that's a really good initiative. What is the process from here? So if the engineer writes his report this week and says whatever he says, that's going to need to come back to this committee or to full council, or because I'm assuming there'll be some urgency.
Councillors, Madam Chair, there are three scenarios. If it's extremely bad, we'll have to come back and say to you, look, we need to close the library. It's no good. If it's as expected, then we will proceed and do the repairs during that 4-week period, and then we'll go to tender to do the external works. If it's in that middle zone where the damage is more than what we've budgeted for, we'll have to come back to this committee and to council to get approval for more funds.
Thank you. We're hoping that everything is going to be okay, but here you go. Councillor McGurk.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Mr. President, I'm just wondering what the weather event, we've got heavy rainfall forecast today and I think tomorrow. Is that going to impact on the structural inspections?
No, it won't, Councillor. They're internal, so they'll be fine.
So nothing's exposed to the... Yep.
No, nothing's exposed. Well, the only area that's exposed to the element is the area that needs to be repaired anyway on the ends.
Thank you. So moving on to page 34, 35. So we've got the Tahuna Nui. We're into lots of toilet work at the moment. Thank you. Councillor Matheson, you had a particular interest in this one?
Yes, I have actually. I'm off sculptures and I'm on to lavatories.
Perfect.
Can you give me a progress, please, on page 34, the Tahuna Nui Lions toilet upgrade and also the Miller's Acre upgrade? Thank you.
Madam Chair, councillors, we've done work on both of those projects. Tahuna, we've looked at 3 options, and I'm concerned that I don't believe that we have adequate funding in that budget to cover what the committee's expectations will be. So I'd like to bring something back to this committee to get direction. We need to know the size of the unit, what we're actually providing. Is it adequate? Is it too big? Is it too small? And we want to know your views on the quality of design. We believe that we can achieve what's needed down there from fairly standard design, but we need to know from you is that acceptable to you. So I'd like to bring a report back. And I'm talking about something in the order, we have in the budget just around 500K. I think realistically, if we proceed with what we discussed with committee previously, we could be in the order of $1 million. So I need to know whether that's acceptable to you or not. Councillors, I'll put that into a report for you, and then you can consider and guide us on which direction to
Mr.
take.
Petheram, we have, can you come up with some options on what you get for what? Because, I'm looking at that total budget of $500,000 and this doesn't build as much as you think it is. And on the ground that's there, I'm not sure either, it's probably on sand, so who knows what the new regulation's going to be on building. But can you come back with a couple of options on what we might be looking at? The community or the people that you did talk to were quite aspirational about what was wanted. So can you come up with like a couple of options for us with budgets attached?
Yes, councillors, we can do that, and we're currently looking at options for how many toilets there are, unisex. We're looking at changing shed options and disabled toilets and disabled change. So we'll bring those options back to you.
I think it's definitely going to be
Thank
more
you.
than that budget.
Can I just follow up now on the Millers Acre upgrade? I see in here you're looking at the possibility of creating a new front entrance to the visitor centre at the same time.
Councillors, that's the feedback that we've had from the two tenants, Doc and the visitor people. They are both of them pushing strongly to move the door, which could cost another 200K. We need to get your opinion as to whether you believe that it's justified or not.
Sorry, where did they want it moved to?
Yeah, they want the entrance to be to come off Trafalgar Street. At the moment, it's down the side. Their view is that it's obscured and they lose custom. We are not convinced that that's the case, but we'll bring their reasoning back to you too.
So a couple of things come to mind, and that's the fact that it's covered where it is.
Yes.
And also they get the business from the buses. So, yeah, I'd need to be convinced to change it as well.
Madam Chair, sorry. When we designed that building, they were two factors that were taken into consideration. Covered access down the side, and also obvious to the buses arriving. So they were two strong points when that building was designed.
And the builders, he's looking elsewhere, but I think he was around when that building was designed and built.
Madam Mayor, what we're
He
proposing,
managed the project, in fact.
Madam Mayor, what we're proposing to put in the building, I think, is sensible, and I think it will be close to budget. But we just need some guidance from you as to whether it's necessary to move that door.
Do you want a decision now?
If you're prepared to give me a decision, I think it would help us.
Mr. Chief Executive, can you give some advice on this, please? Do we need to actually have the question is, I guess, do we need to do this, or can the staff do this for the reasons that they already know about?
I think we better that down rather than make a decision on
the hoof.
Sorry, is to bring it back with a short report outlining the options for the council, for the committee.
Is that possible to come back to our next meeting, Mr. Petheram?
Yes, we can do that, and I think by doing it that way, we can fairly present the reasoning of why it was requested.
I mean, I'm prepared to put a stake in the ground, but I'd really rather, I think that decision making could be tested, so yes, please. we could do that. Right, any more questions on any of the toilets? We can move on to pages 36, 37 and 38, which is the Stoke Youth Park, the artworks maintenance, which I think we've talked about, and the Stoke Youth Project. Councillor Rutledge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. The Stoke Youth Park, page 36 there. The project risks of the Stoke Seniors Building could be considered as a temporary option for the Stoke Library. I appreciate that this report was written some time ago. Does that statement still stand, or is that now no longer a risk or rationale for any sort of delay?
Through the chair, just respond to that. In the event that the work at the permanent Stoke Library turns out to be more serious, on more serious nature, we'd need to consider all available options.
So, in the meantime, this stalls progress on the Stoke Youth Park project.
Through the chair, again, just reflecting on the earlier answer, we'll have an indication in the next few days as to the seriousness of the work that needs to be undertaken at the Stoke Library.
Okay. Madam Chair, given the delays in this project previously and the very clear message from the committee that this is something we want to see some real progress on, as well as the very clear direction around where the committee believes the correct location for any temporary library is, which is our very nice new modern $7 million civic building, I'd be keen to actually just, as you said before, draw a line in the sand, make a decision and say, no, carry on with this project. And anything we do with a temporary Stoke Library stays in Green Meadows.
I've got a different view on that.
Okay.
In that, while the pop-up library is in a small room, Mr. Ball and myself did a walkthrough yesterday. The community are starting to book that main space, so I certainly am not keen to take the community facility away from the community when they're starting to use it. So at the moment, I think probably the safe thing to do is to wait for the report on the Stoke Library, keep all other options open at this point in time. We can make a decision a little bit further down the track when we know a little bit more. It may not even be an issue. So my preference is to leave things as they are with all options open at the moment. Mr. Ball will add to that, as long as you agree.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would just add, I don't believe that the Stoke Youth Project, in particular the temporary skate ramp, is being held up in any way by this other work that is proceeding and is able to, regardless of the issues that we're experiencing with the Stoke Library.
So perhaps we can have an update on the youth work.
Yeah, so
maybe we could have an update on that.
All that work continues, all the consultation's been going on, the options, so that all is full steam ahead in the thinking and planning. There just could potentially be a delay in implementation if certain circumstances shake out.
So we were looking at Whanaka Youth anyway, and they're not ready to go into anywhere else at the moment. They will have plans for bigger, brighter things in the future, but our staff are in contact with them. So maybe we could have a comment about where the youth, that youth work is. Can we have an update on that and what's next? Where are we with it?
Through the chair, oh sorry, Madam Chair, could you please clarify, do you mean the youth work in terms of the project that is being developed by the asset team? Or?
Page 36, which is the Stoke Youth Park.
Yes,
so there's some thinking still going on, isn't there, planning?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll ask Andrew Petheram to answer that question.
Madam Chair, yes, we need to work further with Whanaka Youth and see how they fit into that project at this time.
So we had a workshop with some consultants, and some of those things the skate park came out. Where is that piece of work? That might be the Stoke Youth Project. They sort of cross over a little bit, don't they?
What we're doing with the youth facility, the next thing we need to do is consult with the Stoke community, particularly the young people.
Yeah.
And we see that by putting in a temporary skate facility is probably going to create a focal point for kids that we can target to get information. We're also looking at improving the basketball area around by the Jack Robbins Stadium. And if we can try to come up with something for young women as well, it'll provide a focal point for the consultation. But we need also to have discussions with Whanake Youth to see what they can provide through that building, and that's something that we're working with Steve on at the moment.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask for, I'm not sure where we're going with this. I just want a little bit more activity in this area. Can we get that work and your communications with Whanake Youth and any other youth that you might think are, that you need to involve, and come back to the next meeting with some sort of progress on this piece of work? Because I'm just afraid we're going to end up stalling, and we can't stall because youth don't stay youth very long. So let's keep it moving. We have got a budget to do this work, haven't we?
Yes, we do, and it's something that we need to do, work together across our teams to come up with a solution which is going to be best fit for the Stoke youth.
Okay, so can we report back to our next meeting on what you've managed to do in the next 6 weeks?
Sure.
Thank you. Councillor Rutledge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does the Stoked group feature in those discussion plans?
Through the chair, yes, they recently submitted to the annual plan and we're in discussion with them at the moment.
Great. Any other questions on this? Right, so that was 36, 37, 38. We'll now move to 39. We've talked about the Nelson Arts Festival transition and we will be looking at that piece of work shortly. And the strategy for the Nelson ageing demographic. Is anybody here to talk to that?
Through, Madam Chair, we have Officer Joubert is here to speak to that item.
Thank you. We got any questions on this piece of work? Councillor McGurk, thank you.
Yeah, the question I've got around is the one on project risks, about some groups or some partners are not showing interest in participating. Can you please explain?
Through the chair, thank you. Yes, so although we started this project in November, we are yet to get to the point where we can start talking about who our partners might be. And so, you know, at this stage, we're still building the co-design part of our project where we will be asking the community to help us work on this strategy, tell us what the needs are that they see in the community. The next phase will be actually engaging with the organisations and the groups that are out there. And so until we've got to that point, there is a risk we see that perhaps there will be some partners who won't be interested in partnering on this project.
Yeah, well, I think it raises two issues for me. One is why they don't want to participate, and having gone through that, is there groups or individuals out there that we're going to miss? So I'm just wondering, we got any feedback why those groups may not wish to participate? And in doing so, what have we identified any groups or individuals that we are likely to miss? Now, I'm thinking of if we're dealing with older people, they tend to become a bit more socially isolated. So we're not all go to clubs and organisations and outings. And some people, if we're dealing with a risk element, I'm just wondering about how we actually get into those hard to reach groups. And that's, you know, I'm talking about migrant community, disabled, and so forth. So.
Through the chair, yes, we're conscious that, you know, particularly in the older adult group, there is a problem with social isolation. And in talking to some of the groups that are active in this space, so Volunteer Nelson, for example, and Age Concern, that is an issue that they've identified as well. And so there are a lot of people out there working on that. And so just to sort of break the question up into bits, we are hopeful that all the agencies that are active in this space will be keen to join us on this strategy. So there's no specific reason that we think that there are a group that'll say no, but we do identify that as a risk. In terms of reaching groups, for example, isolated adults or smaller groups, we have another project running concurrently with this, which is to specifically engage with smaller groups whose voice is sometimes lost in the traditional consultation methods. And so we've identified 5 groups there, which you'll see there: Māori, Pacifica, refugees, recent migrants, and LGBTI. So we do have a separate project running for that. And so our aim is really that the strategy will be inclusive, and so every effort will be made to gather views from as many people as we can.
Thank you. Just on that one with the consultants that's dealing with with that group that you've mentioned, I'm not going to repeat it. When might we hear any results of that work?
Through the chair, so we've engaged our consultant, and we have also been in discussions with AUT, who will be doing a peer review of our project model to make sure that we have robust methodology there so that our results could be used in future research for other groups. And so because we are keen to have this as a co-research project with the community taking part, it does take a little bit of time to get going, because it means that we need to find people in the community who are willing to participate as co-researchers. And so we've been slowly spreading the word and broadening the network and looking for people. And so we're at the point now where we think we've identified a couple of people in each of those groups. So they'll be our first pebble in the pond, and hopefully the waves will increase so that we will slowly grow the network and increase the number of people who are willing to participate in that. So we do have a meeting scheduled next week for our councillor working group, and so we'll be able to give you a bit more detail in that, and then we can bring some updates later on in the year once there's more news.
Thank you. I think the important thing about this piece of work is that it is community-led. And it doesn't matter whether we're here or whether we're not, that it'll carry on. And I think that was the important part, that was the continuity. So if it's community driven, then, we don't need to be here. But we're very interested in what's going on, so I'll be looking forward to that update. Thank you. Any other questions on that? No? Okay, thank you. So we'll go on to page 41, which there is a larger sheet on your tables, which is easier to read unless you've got a magnifying glass and a pair of glasses and whatever else you need. So if there's anything on here that you'd like to ask about, well, I'll just give you a moment to just have another look at it. Councillor McGurk.
Yeah, really a quick question. We talk about the counts for the library. Let's talk to Scara at the library, break about libraries. The 2 measures you've got there in terms of visitor numbers in proportion to the Nelson population and the trending figure, are those figures reasonably relevant, or are we just sort of maintaining a historic trend with a view to say, well, without taking recognition of other people, there's a change with libraries, and whether we're just sticking with some historic measures and just measuring against.
Thank you. I just want to introduce Serena. Serena's recently appointed as library manager. So, library manager?
Yes, starting in August.
Starting in August. Oh, we've got her up here early, so welcome. She's surrounded by friends, so
she's amongst friends.
She's amongst friends as well, so there we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in regards to your question regarding the statistics that we have, We are currently reviewing at the moment how we manage our statistics, what we're recording, and the accuracy of our statistics. So you will note there has been a slight downward trend. This is nationwide, it's worldwide, but Nelson Library sits above the national. We sit sort of here.
We're above the national average.
We're above the national average, exactly. So.
Satisfied?
Yeah, that's the answer, and appreciate it. Thanks very much. Yeah, I just think we've just got a historic figure. It tells us something, but I'm not sure it tells us what we really need to know.
There'll be more happening in this space and more accuracy around our statistics moving forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Rutledge?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't expect an answer to this question at all, but more something I'd like to know for the future is when we are looking at some potential examples of what a great new library build looks like around other cities, can we see what their stats are doing in terms of tracking with whether these are the relevant metrics or others, to know, well, if we build something like that, what does it do?
There are stats being recorded through the new library developments nationwide and worldwide, and what the stats currently show is that the increase in usership is approximately 35%. I would have to double check that.
So the new build results in a 35%
increase in foot flow within the first year.
Well, thanks for that. That's very prompt. She should probably get a job or something. Seems to know a subject.
I'll take it.
She's been in there for a wee while. She's a secret. It's no longer. Councillor Fulton.
Oh, yes, sorry. I'm just wondering, is there a key? I don't know what the yellow means. The highlights. Is there a reason why some of it's in yellow, these bits here?
Oh, no? Ms Raggett?
Through the chair, I'm sorry, I don't know. Oh, I can find out, but I don't think it means anything. I think it's just an error in formatting.
Oh, okay. I just thought that maybe it was highlighted for our attention, but I can't quite figure that one out. That's really what my question was.
Typically, it means that through the editing process, there was something in there that had to be fixed yet, and we leave it yellow, and then once it's fixed, we take it off. And I suspect we forgot to take the yellow off.
Okay. All right. No, that's helpful because I highlight things in yellow when they need editing as well. In terms of, I do have another question. In terms of Q2 result where it says not on track for the libraries, it's not, because it looks like it's on track, it looks like it's tracking to me in terms of the historic performance. So why is it not on track in the Q2 result? Oh, and 125,000, yeah. So specifically, so my question really is our performance indicator set too high that for us to not be on track, and should we be reassessing that, or is it realistic that we should be on track and we need to figure out why we're not, I guess is more my question.
Through the chair, so this is what we are currently looking at. So it's not just about our statistics, but it's also about our performance measures and making sure that they are realistic for today's climate.
Okay, good. Because I do think that we need to remember that it's not all about quantitative data, it's about what data we're choosing to measure, and qualitative is really important as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Corney? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You've mentioned just a moment ago about more accuracy in regard to determining the number of customers, library customers that go through your door. What are you going to do differently in the future as to what you're doing now? What are you going to change?
Yep, so the door count is reasonably accurate. That is one of our statistics that is pretty good, but we don't measure things like closures when Nightingale Library was closed. We also, we don't take into account problems with the door counters. We don't get them checked regularly to make sure that they're accurate. So that's an example in relation to the door counts. We've recently changed Wi-Fi suppliers, and that has caused a range of issues in regards to online usage and measuring that. So it's bringing previous statistics in line with current statistics.
Just to follow up on that, so these statistics, how often do you sort of review them? Weekly, is it, or do you monthly? Or?
We collect statistics for every single day. We have spreadsheets that go back years, and there needs to be more review of them and more discussion about them and just more reflection. So that's also within the current plan.
That's good to hear. And just to follow up, just out of interest, I'm curious to know, which day would you be your busiest day?
Saturday mornings.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'm happy to move that we accept the report,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
Have we got a seconder? Thank you, councillor Fulton. Right, the staff can have a go. So we all done? We are all done. It's been so long, this piece. Yes, I'm just wondering whether there's any debate. Is there any debate? Oh. Thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you so much to all the staff who work really hard on so many of these issues. I know that at times things are more challenging than they appear on a piece of paper, and I think that there's some great work happening out in the community at the moment, and I'm really appreciative of what's going on. So I just wanted to acknowledge the hard work of the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to put it. All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. So we'll now move on to the item number 9 on the agenda, which is a statement of intent for the Nelson Festivals Trust, and we have got a third bullet point for us to have a look at.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Right, you'd like to move that, and do I have a seconder? Councillor Matheson. So now any questions on this? No questions? Any debate? Councillor McGurk.
I applaud the notice of the mover and the seconder for this one, but it's a bit mealy-mouthed. I thought, more ambitious objectives beyond the status quo. What does that mean? We've heard from the trust chair and the officers is that we're in a period of transition, that they have got a reasonably successful project they wish to enhance and develop, but to put something up like a more ambitious objectives is a bit too vague for my liking.
Right, how about we get some advice from the officers and see where we get from there? Thank you. going to take a slight adjournment just to work through the nuts and bolts of this. We wanted to get this right, and I'm trying to listen to all views around the table to get this to work. So basically, I'd be requesting that councillors Rutledge and Matheson agree with the change, right? And what we've done here is actually leave this year so that the trust can have that this year to get themselves, so rather than put pressure on them for this year, which was originally what we were looking at, we've made it so that the following year they can show those ambitious objectives, which they probably would have got their heads around because they would have had a year under their belts. So that's the recommendation. So have we got any questions on the recommendation? Councillor Fulton?
Yes, I'd prefer the recommendation still said with minor amendments, because I think the trust was quite keen to make some minor alterations to the existing statement of intent. For example, Councillor Courtney picked up on the fact that the governance, what was it, that's something which is, it sounded like in the statement of intent it hadn't been done, but it has in fact been done rather over the governance model. So I think that there is some minor amendments which the Nelson Festivals Trust probably needs to do before it comes to council.
And I think that's
doesn't say with minor amendments.
I think that's true. I think it will be going back to the trust for their, yeah.
So can we have approves the Nelson Festivals Trust draft statement of intent with minor amendments as the final statement of intent for 2019 in that first paragraph, please?
I don't think that's a problem. But yes, that's approved. So we'll do that. Oh, no, they're going to agree to it. So they will agree to that wording. So we'll wait for that to come up.
And I think that gives them the opportunity to amend as they would like to.
Thank you. Right, both the mover and the second are happy with that? Right.
Well, I'm still not happy with it.
Right, Councillor?
Madam Chair, I just don't like the connotation in that. I don't.
With
more
the first
ambitious
or
objectives.
The second one?
That's the one, more ambitious objectives. You couldn't get any group of people more ambitious than the Nelson Festivals Trust. You and I know that, Madam Chair. You and I know that. So I don't think we need this at all. I think it's an intrusion. It's just taking their time to respond to this. Just let them get on with the job. It's exciting when you read the strategy and the program that they've got coming up and how they're going to be inclusive and take the CBD in as part of it and all of that. This is going to be a very professional group, all volunteers, and I don't think we should intrude in this way at all. I just, deep down in my inner self, it says just leave them alone and let them get on with the job. This is, as you said, as Councillor McGurk said, this is nitpicking.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll take that as debate. So we're in debate. So Councillor Courtney's spoken. Anybody else wish to indicate to speak? Right of reply.
Can I please request that the recommendation to council get put as two parts?
I don't have a problem with that.
Thank you.
Righty-ho.
Actually, I think you might run into a problem when we're trying to deal with these amendments. I'm just wondering, would it be in a more appropriate way is deal with each of the amendments in red as two separate?
That's what Councillor Fulton has just asked, that I take it in two parts.
So, yeah, so what I've requested is that the recommendation to council is in two parts.
So maybe we could number them at the moment. Is that possible? Oh.
Yeah, we have a new numbering system.
Will that be suitable to everybody?
Yeah, and I'll speak. Have you finished, Brian?
Right.
I'll speak to it really briefly. Look, I understand the intentions of Councillor Rutledge, but like Councillor Courtney, I concur that actually we have a festival trust. It wasn't just established to be more ambitious or to achieve more. It was established because there was a feeling that it was established for multiple reasons, not just to become more ambitious and to achieve more for the same amount of money. And I think that we have seen a trust turn around and bring energy and oomph into our festival, which was already sensational and amazing. It's pretty hard to lift the bar of what we've had for 24 years. So we have a very high bar already, and And I totally concur with Councillor Courtney. Let them get on with how they grow and change the festival is going to be a wonderful thing, but you can't always measure that statistically or quantitatively. A lot of it's around celebrating diversity and inclusion and reaching out to a wider reach and figuring out new ways of exploring things. And these, some of it might be incredibly successful, and there will be some failings along the way. Some things they might not get quite right. So I'm reluctant to request the Trust to do more than we were doing when we already had an incredible festival in these early years. If they delivered a festival this year which was below par, then maybe we would be considering what needed to be done in future years. But I am fully confident that this Festival Trust is totally dedicated and are going to bring some stuff to us which is going to be very memorable.
Councillor Matheson.
You having a nice day?
Having a fantastic day, thank you.
Great. What's for lunch?
No idea.
Right. I think that's actually and more ambitious objectives as an incentive to them and encouragement to them to be a little bolder, knowing that they have the will and the support of the council. Because sometimes when you belong to these organisations, you get a bit shy as to how far you can go when you're spending that sort of the dollars, whether you're going to, just play the safe game and go along the same road. What we're saying here is that we're going to back you guys to sit outside and move outside the square. And that statement says we're going to go with you, and we're looking for you to be more ambitious. So I don't see any problem. I think it's just a nice way of saying, guys, have a bit of fun.
If you change it to encourages, I'll support it.
I'm going to speak, thank you. And then we'll go to the right of reply to Councillor Rutledge. I'm looking at the committee and I'm thinking it's probably going to be 50-50 here, but I'm going to say what I think and then we'll go from there. I'm sort of 50-50 on it, but I think that the second one, I think it's absolutely fine to seek more ambitious objectives, and I think that the Trust actually are going to do it. I think they have every intention of doing that, and I got the impression from this morning from Mr. Thorley that it wouldn't be a problem for them to actually state that they have more ambitious objectives. He said that it was already in their agreement or their contract, so I don't think it's going to be onerous on them at all. I think what it will do is it will give us a bit more information than what we've gotten now, because it will come out of, some of those things will come out of the contract and be more visible to the public, which I think is a good thing. So I will be voting for the ambitious objectives to be retained in that for those reasons. And I'll go now to the right of reply from Councillor Rutledge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm speaking in support of both of these two measures. It is very clear that the whole purpose for setting up this new structure was that this council believed that more could be delivered for our community by setting up a new structure. The current metrics and targets are all based on the status quo being delivered again. And while I've accepted that's an okay baseline for the first year, if we do not clearly indicate that we are expecting bigger and better things, then we've wasted everybody's time in even setting up this new structure. And I have full confidence that Mr. Thorley and the Trust are going to deliver beyond status quo for this year and beyond status quo into the future. So I agree with you, Madam Chair, that this is not an onerous requirement. It is certainly not nitpicking nor meddling. This is showing clear direction from their key partner that actually we are expecting big things of them. And some of those big things involve some hard metrics to come back with, well, how has this been delivered and how has this delivered value for money and increased reach into the community, not sort of fuzzy, soft words with nothing behind them. So I'm certainly keen to see this progress.
Thank you. So I will be putting the recommendation that the Community Services Committee receives the report first, so I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Now I'll move to the recommendation to Council, so I'm going to be putting number 1, which approves the Nelson Festivals Trust draft statement of intent 1920 with minor amendments as the final statement of intent for 1920, so I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? For the next one? Carried. And now I'll move to the recommendation to Council for the second clause, which requests the Trust to include more specific metrics and more ambitious objectives in the subsequent Statement of Intent 2021. And I've been asked to call a division first for me, so there we go. Mr Ball is now in charge.
Madam Chair, I'm just wondering, are we dealing with the 2, is that the substantive motion or is the red an amendment?
The whole thing is substantive because it was all agreed by the mover and the seconder. Thank you. Mr Ball.
Thank you for recommendation 2. Councillor Courtney?
Aye.
Councillor Fulton?
No.
Councillor Laurie is an apology. Councillor McGurk?
Aye.
Councillor Matheson?
Yes.
Councillor Noonan?
Yes.
The Mayor is an apology. Councillor Rutledge?
Yes.
And
No, because if I can't convince you, then I think it's fair and democratic. Right, so, how do I read this? So, 2 apologies, 3 aye, 3 no, so we end up with nothing, don't we? Right, so that second one is gone. If you wish to do it again in Council, I guess you can try again with a bigger number of people. I'm going to adjourn the meeting for 2 minutes. We're now going to move to item 10, which is fees and charges relating to community services for 1920, and starts at page 59. Right, who's looking after this? Rosie. I'll come 10 minutes.
Were we going to go into public excluded?
We'll see how long this takes. Okay. Thank you, Rosie.
Good morning, everybody. And through the chair, I'd just like to make a point of clarification at 4.6.3 in regards to Founders Park. So all of the fees that are mentioned there for moving, for alteration, are for visitors. So any entry to Founders Park for Nelson residents and Tasman residents comes at no charge. So those points there are just for out-of-town visitors.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor, we've got Youth Councillor Theo and then Councillor Rutledge.
That was my question answered.
Oh, perfect. She must have known. Councillor Rutledge.
Has any price elasticity modelling been done on this, and what is the expected, what's the expected result from this?
Are you referring to Founders specifically? Right.
So through the chair to answer that, I've just got an email from Sarah Newman-Watts, who manages Founders, and she has looked at other facilities around New Zealand, similar facilities, and assessed Founders charges against those charges. So I'm happy to circulate the email, but it looks at Shantytown, Howick Historic Village, Ferrymead and Christchurch, Taranaki Pioneer Village, etc. So that was the reasoning behind the fees increase, to bring it more on board.
The answer to the question, Madam Chair?
Mr. Vaughan.
Through the chair, formal price elasticity modelling has not been done on this. We are working on the basis of trying to align with other similar facilities, both locally and nationally as we understand it, but also fundamentally trying to achieve the objectives of the revenue and financing policy.
Is there any expected drop in foot traffic caused by this pricing change?
Through the chair to answer that, we couldn't accurately say that until the foot traffic had been measured against the year, but there certainly hasn't been any expectation that these price changes will affect that.
And this is just for visitors, isn't it?
So, through the chair, if it's all right, I might add to that Founders Park is incredibly cheap compared to those other facilities, and we would be very surprised, given that our position in the market, if it resulted in a significant or a major change in visitor numbers, and the price increase is not significant when measured in our view in regard to that.
So just on there, what are our visitor numbers to the park? I mean, what sort of... We're getting them. I guess the reason for the question is that if we start to get some resistance, what's the process if that was happening? Is that visitors to Nelson though? I want to know what the visitor outside, because these fees only relate to people outside Nelson, so I wanted a sense of how many people that would actually affect. I'm not worried about locals because we've got them covered.
Through the chair, I'd have to respond to you separately on to give you a specific breakdown on the visitors numbers, but also would like to draw your attention to the fact that across the last 12 months was an unusual period due to a period of the cafe closure, which did also have some impact.
Okay, so we would have to go back a few years to find out. So, okay, the backup question to that is then if you started to get a bit of resistance, would you come back to the committee and relook at your fees? What's the story there?
Yes, we would.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Matheson?
Thank you. I've got two quick ones. Just staying on Fountas Park, how do you identify locals?
You haven't been lately, have you?
No.
Through the chair, they are residents of the Nelson and Tasman territorial local authorities.
So they have to identify in some form?
Yes.
What would they traditionally submit?
Something with your address, a library card is often used, that sort of thing.
Why Tasman?
Pardon?
I'd have to say that when I went last, which wasn't that long ago, with some visitors from out of town, they, I said, oh, what would you do? I mean, they knew who I was, but I said, what would you do? And they said, oh, we usually ask a question like, oh, who's the mayor? So, you know, you have to be, if you haven't got, usually you've got something on you. But there you go.
And Tasman, why Tasman?
I would have to again look through the historical records to find the answer to that question.
Don't get into a lather about it. Can we go to 4.4.1, and I'm going to talk about Superloop. It has always been 20 cents since the day it opened, and how long ago was that? Can you refresh my memory?
Through the chair, our long-standing staff members in the Parks team are not here at the moment, so I just need to go back and find out that information.
The reason I'm asking this is because I think 20 cents is too cheap. And the other reason is it's a great hangout for Freedom campers to pay 20 cents and have a full washdown. I think it's time we made an adjustment. I think 50 cents is more appropriate today to run that place, not 20. So maybe you could come back and have a look at that. I don't think, seriously, 50 cents is not unreasonable. And I don't know how long the Super has been open, but it's a number of years now. Do you know, Pam?
I would guess 25 years.
Yeah.
25 years.
20 cents? Just. Yeah, I think you should make an adjustment, frankly.
Or maybe it should be free. I mean, it's a toilet, it's a public toilet.
That's for another day, I think.
20 cents is pretty.
There is a public toilet that's free right outside, so if you want to take that one, you can, but I know too much about toilets is what worries me. Right, any other questions on fees and charges, or are we ready to receive the report? Would somebody like to receive? Thank you, Councillor McGurk. Councillor Fulton, second that?
Yeah, but I wanted to make a little comment.
In debate?
Well, it was in response to Councillor Matheson's. I do think it's an important conversation to have because I actually think nowadays most people don't even carry change or money, cash in their wallets. So it's not really an issue around paying 20 cents or 50 cents to use the toilet, but there is a barrier to some people having that money and actually should we just make it free? And I think it is a conversation we need to have, and it's never come up that I can recall about what kind of amenity we want in that area. So by all means charge for showers and laundry facilities, but I actually think it should be free.
The only thing is once you get in there, then you don't know who's doing what, I guess. So you'd have to change maybe to a coin shower or something like that. But that is a debate for another day, or it's a discussion for maybe that can come up in the asset management plans. Would that come up? I think so. We could raise it in that.
I think they charge a different rate if you're having a shower or you're using the laundry. So
they do.
But once they get in there, you don't.
Once you go and stand there at the holiday period, and you don't know where they've gone.
And you can't go to the toilet.
Okay. So that might be something we need to assess. But I think there's sort of an honesty. If you're having a shower, paying $3 or $4 or $5 for it, maybe it could be a sliding scale depending on your income.
I think we'll have to talk about that in the asset management plan. It's a good point. Right, we've received the report. Are we ready to move it? I'll put it. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Have I just checked with Robin? Everything done that we need to do on this part of it? Right, so I need someone to then, we've got a couple of items in public excluded. I'd like to ask someone to move that we go into public excluded. Thank you, councillor Courtney. Seconded by councillor Fulton. Thank you. I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you to the youth councillors. I hope it's been informative, interesting. Basically, you're still with us, so that's a good sign. So thank you for coming today.
Do you think it's appropriate, Madam, that that's the end of the open meeting, that we adjourn and have a quick lunch and come back?
What we do need is we do need to transact one piece of business because we've finished this part of the meeting, haven't we?
Yeah, I was just hoping
I'll
that
talk
the
to you
youth
later.
councillors will be able to get some lunch before
They can go and have some lunch. Please do. Can somebody do that? We've got a blue paper.